So anyway, look, we are in this 23rd of June. We're just going to take time in our Sunday gathering to take up an offering, and we are endeavouring to raise a deposit to buy a building, if not this building, a building that would be more suitable for us. But we just felt the Spirit of God's just been sort of speaking in the background, say, come on, it's time to actually stop leasing a building and move towards buying a building. I've been a little bit resistant to the idea, probably in some regards, just for my own sort of journey with nervousness around people feeling pressure to give and all that sort of stuff. It got to the point now where it's just kind of feel like, okay, if I just keep being a little bit slow with this, I'm going to end up like Jonah. And I don't want to end up like Jonah. So we put a date in and we're like, okay, God, we believe you're in this. And we're embarking on a journey together. There's some information. If you want to know some of the details, you should have got an email this week. If not, in the foyer at the back, there's a little bit more detail about this. Over the next 12 months, our plan is through one-off giving and then a pledges over 12 months. And also, let's come up with some creative initiatives as well to raise $700,000, which we're already got $120,000 towards. Now, every church that has a building that they don't have to pay exorbitant leases for has it because there was a generation that sacrificed to make it happen, and that's the part that we get to play in this beautiful picture, I think, of what we will hand over for those who will come after us. And we see a church, increasingly we see a church in a church context where models that were championed have now kind of been, for lack of a better word, weighed and found wanting, and we've gone, okay, where's the healthy churches? Where's the model of a church that is deeply healthy, integrates mental and emotional health in spirituality, still believes in the gifts of the Spirit and is filled with the Spirit and in preaching the gospel and seeing the lost saved, but does it in a way that there's not the pressure, but this genuine heart to devotion to Christ? Where are the models? Where are the examples? And I just would dare to believe that Revolution could be one of those examples, could be one of those models to the church of a healthy, Jesus-loving, thriving, faith-filled, spirit-filled, gospel-oriented church. And so we continue to be incredibly passionate about this. And so maybe we can even do that in how we talk about finances. And you know us well enough, you know that we don't believe that church is a building. We believe that church gathers well and then scatters well. Goes well. We believe that in the midst of that, though, there is this sacred space that we gather and come together in every Sunday, and then during the week desire for it more and more to be a place of equipping. And so the idea is that this offering is going to be a free will offering, a free will opportunity. That's the language that's come through as we've thought about how do we do this in a way that's beautiful and a gift and a faith-building journey. Not a pressure, not a burden, not a focus, not the priority. Our priority will be Jesus and people. But we want to have a building that actually reflects that well, and so stewards the finances well that come in. So it's going to be a free will offering. Similar, I think, to what Moses did with the Israelites when they they were in the wilderness, but they set out to build a tabernacle, this place, this central sort of gathering, HQ, if you like, where they would meet with God and then God would lead them on the journey. Not a tithe. Some of you may feel stirred in this journey to start tithing, and we would welcome that. But that's, we use that in terms of the running of the mission and the ministry of the church, and asking people not to redirect their tithes to the building project so that we can keep doing what we're doing in the midst of it. But in Exodus 35, Moses, verse 4, he said to the whole community, this is what the Lord's commanded. From what you have, take an offering to the Lord. Everyone who's willing. Everyone who's willing. If you're not, hey, you're still part of this picture. You're still part of the whānau. You're still part of it. There's no pressure, right? There's no tier status at Revolution Church. Have you noticed that? There's no top tier givers or anything like that. And it's like we're a family, and some people. Anyway, all right. Those who are willing. Let everyone bring gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple, scarlet, yarn, fine linen, goat hair. I'm not sure what they did with goat hair. Well, I do know what they did with goat hair because I know theology, but I don't want you to bring goat hair. Ram skin dyed red and Okay, all right, olive oil. Okay, we could use that. Verse 9, onyx stone. Anyway, it goes on. In the next chapter, this is what happens. This is phenomenal. And this is what we're just kind of believing for, that in the midst of this, we would see God move. And this is what happened, and that's why I sign up the back there. Verse 30, chapter 30, that was verse and chapter. Exodus 36:3. They received from Moses all the offerings the Israelites had brought to carry out the work of constructing the sanctuary. And the people continued to bring their freewill offerings morning after morning. So the skilled workers who were doing the work in the sanctuary left what they were doing and said to Moses, the people are bringing more than enough to do the work the Lord has commanded. Then Moses gave an order, and they sent out the word throughout the camp. No man or woman is to bring anything else to the offering in the sanctuary, is what you never heard from any church ever. And so the people were restrained from bringing more because there was already enough to do all the work. How good. That's kind of, imagine being that kind of people. What happens? I know you're asking, what happens if we get more than the 700,000? That's easy. We'll just buy the whole thing straight away. And our outgoings on lease, we have to have 60%, 40% deposit. So we would just minimize the borrowing, and that's what we would do there. And then, what happens if we just buy it off in one chunk? Well, then we'll tell you to stop giving. What happens if we do that quicker than a year? We'll buy sooner. What happens if we don't raise it by then? Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. But I think the thing probably most likely we would do is that we would look for a Sunday-only venue and just keep saving the rest of the lease until we raise the lease. I'm not phased. I just think we're going to see God in this. Yeah. So we're setting a course and going, here we go, we've got a year, let's try and raise this. Let's see what God does through us. What do we want you to do? And we're going to talk over the next few weeks about how we're going to do this and practicalities a bit more. So stay tuned. But what do we want you to do? We want you to pray and just ask God and say, God, are you leading me to play a part in this season? And let's just learn together again to be people committed to trusting God's leading in our lives. And so we actually thought we'd get Amy up to share a time in our life where we trusted God. And it wasn't easy, but she's going to share that.
I am going to share, but before I share, I just couldn't help but notice the child on the left. When this PowerPoint was made, Steve's like, who's that kid on the left? I don't recognize that child. I'm like, that's your son. That's our son a few years ago. He's changed quite a lot, but anyway.
What's the haircut? Hey,
yeah, he's changed a lot. It was just funny.
Who cut his hair back then?
You used to cut his hair. It's not a bowl cut, but anyway, moving on. That's not what I'm up here to highlight. That's not the exciting story. Just wanted to share a testimony about from our journey. From the moment that Steve and I got engaged, we just had this shared value, non-negotiable, that we would always walk in faithful obedience to God, that when God spoke, our answer would always be yes. And so I want to share a story. Come on a journey with me 22 years ago. It was the year that we got engaged, and we were getting married in September of that year. And our plan in the lead up to the wedding, and we were building a house, was that I was saving a portion of my salary for our honeymoon, and we were going to sell Steve's car to put towards a deposit on the house. So in the July, we were getting married in September, so in July we came down here to Christchurch. We were living in Nelson, and we came down to Get Smart, which was a big youth conference. And on one of the nights of the conference, there was an offering talk being given, and the Holy Spirit started to speak quite clearly to both of us. And so I heard the Holy Spirit say really clearly to me, I want you to give the offering money, the honeymoon money that you've saved, which was at that point $1,000, which 22 years ago, guys, $1,000 could pay for a honeymoon. Context, we were doing a South Island road trip down to Queenstown. And anyway, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm going to be honest, feel a little bit anxious in this point, just cognitively wrestling with, but God, what's that going to mean? And how can we go on a honeymoon? And it's 3 months away. And, you have these little processes in your mind, but my heart's racing, and I've learned to recognize when God's speaking. So I'm like, I need to tell Steve. So I kind of nudge him. He's praying, and I'm like, babe, I've got something to tell you. He goes, what? I go, God's spoken to me about the offering, and I need to give out honeymoon money. And he goes, oh, well, that's all right then. God's asked me to give the car. So while I'd been having this moment, God had said to him, I want you to give your car. So he wrote a note and put it in the offering saying either he would sell the car after the conference and give the money from the sale in the offering, or if a car would be beneficial for the ministry, then he would hand over his car keys. So we faithfully obeyed. This was back in the day of checkbooks. Wrote my check out, put it in, and just both felt such a peace. We didn't know what was going to happen from there, but we just knew we had responded in faithful obedience, and we just had such a peace about it. So then, we weren't giving with an expectation of God giving back, but it was an opportunity to really grow and trust in God. And so fast forward a few months, and it was, so for the next 2 months, it was winter. Steve walked or biked to work. So I'm not here to say that the very next day God gave him a car, because that's not what happened. But he walked and biked to work. And then maybe 3 weeks before our wedding, an envelope was given to our church reception, and the person who handed it in said, "This is for Steve." And it was a set of car keys and a note saying that this car is being given to the church, gifted to the church, but for Steve's use. So he got given the use of a car for the next, I don't know how long, but God provided a vehicle for him, which was amazing, and we were able to use it for our road trip honeymoon. And then the week of the wedding, we were still like, we don't know if we're having a honeymoon, but we were okay with that. We're just like, what will be, will be. And then that week in my letterbox, got an envelope with a check written for the exact same amount that I had given in the offering 3 months earlier, just with a note saying, "This is just want to bless you guys." And it turns out the family that I was boarding with at the time, they'd felt God say to them that from the moment we got engaged, that they were to put aside my board money every week and gift it back to us as a blessing for our wedding. So behind the scenes, God's orchestrating these cool things. And, like I say, it wasn't that we gave to get back, but God is just so good, and he's so kind, and he's so faithful, and in our desire to just walk in faithful obedience, we were just blown away by the goodness and the faithfulness of God. So we got to have a car and have money and go and have I was going to say amazing honeymoon, but even that wouldn't be entirely true, but that's a story. There's a story for another time where I drove the wrong way and got us a speeding ticket, and we had an argument and slept in separate bedrooms that night. But anyway, yeah, we can laugh about it now. I can tell you that story in more detail if anyone's interested to know. But all that to say, yeah, anyway, that's not, again, the story I want you to retain from this morning. Please park that and just hear the encouragement that as we prepare for this offering, I really encourage you to seek God and say, "God, what part would you have me play? What would you have me contribute to this?" And if God speaks an amount that may make you freak out and go, "Oh my gosh," just encourage you to trust. Trust in the process. Be faithful, be obedient, because God is so good, and he's just so faithful. He's so kind, and he's so good. So that is my encouragement. We've got heaps of stories like that. So many cool stories of God's provision over the last 22 years where we have just said yes in obedience and just watched God move in the most incredible ways. So cool. Alrighty. Wow.